God bless everybody today. It is November 8th of 2022, and I just wanted to go over a few things. Today we're having that election on November 8th of 2022. There's a blood moon event over this country, and I think that's going to affect us as we move forward. I just wanted to touch base on some things. These are mostly my opinion, but I just wanted to cover some ground with you so we can see how this is going to turn out. And I just may be wrong, but let's see how it's going to play out in the near future. So back in February 7th of 21, I made this video about how I thought Antichrist would rise by 2024 and how we had these events between their solar or lunar eclipses that are, and in these cases, we're supposed to be watching for signs. And so I went out and I looked at the pathways of all these things. There was a number of annual and total solar eclipses on specific dates. And so I wanted to cover those dates. Now, as you'll see, the paths that they produced were an A over this country. And so between 2017 and 2024, I was concerned that we would see a lot of things happening. And what happened in 2019 to going into 2020, we started to see the COVID come out, and now we're into the midterm election of 2022 with a lot of bad things going on out here that have ramped up since then. And we're moving into 2024, and I've been talking about a potential rise of Antichrist at this time. Now, these dates, as you can see them, are August, and I'm trying to do this without my glasses on here. Maybe I should put my glasses on for a second. So we have this one on August 21st of 2017. We're going to have another one on October 14th of 2023, and then we're going to have an additional one in April 8th of 2024, and this makes an A over this country. Now, I'm a little concerned about this one here because I live, I'm in Illinois. So, and this is like over the southern part of, this is St. Louis, and this is around Springfield, and you've got Peoria and some things up in here. So this would be in the southern portion. We had that first swath on 2017. We're going to have an additional one coming over us on 2024. But it looks to me like an Anarchy sign. And as we're moving into the midterm election of 22 on a blood moon event. Now today is it's the election night. It's November 8th of 2022. It's a full moon event with a blood moon event directly over this country. So is that an omen of what's to come? Now, I had made another video back on June 27th of 2020 how we were having a 6-planet conjunction over this country, literally lined up. Actually, it was about 7 planets if you go into this and you actually watch the video. It shows you this rotation of all these planets that literally come together. So I just wanted to show you this portion of the clip where these planets align, and you can see how this all comes together. And it's amazing. This fell over the 4th of July over 2020. And like I say, we had a couple events in 2020. We had this was President Trump's election cycle where he lost, and we brought the Democrats in. And so I thought it was extremely important to look at this this calendar. Now look at how this lines up. And like I say, this was over the 4th of July in this country. So it's interesting that all of these are aligning, and they're playing a lot of pressure on the earth at this moment, okay, through this alignment. And so I thought it was a potential omen that we were going to be walking into potentially a bad, not only a bad election cycle in 2020, which it did. We saw that election overturned through Georgia, and Biden was the presumptive winner on November 13th of 2020. And so we were moving into this cycle. Also, on this blood moon that we're having now, this is at the end of a tetrad. So I had made this video on May 4th of 2022, and it indicated that we were going to have these 4 super blood moons, and that they were going to align on the last date. The last one of the tetrad would be November 8th. And so I thought that that would finish a cycle. That would be potentially a bad cycle. All these seem to end up with blood moons all over this country, and this is going to potentially cause a real problem as we move forward. And so if you go out and look at these times and dates, you know, what could happen, I guess, is the question. What could happen tonight? So as everybody goes out and votes today, we're watching a potential crash of the markets right now. Not to the point where it's going to crash today, okay? Everybody says, well, it's going to crash in the night. That's right. It takes time to crash markets and things. But look at this. And I may have to let me see if I can redo this. Okay, so Bitcoin is now, as you can see, has dropped 2,300 points today, almost 2,400 points. If you go to the Ethereum chart, and we'll re-click on that. This is just since I've been making it. Ethereum's down 250 points, but yet the markets are up. We're up almost 500. Right now, when I started making the video, they were down about 230. And as you can see, it's up 235. So it's this. There's a disconnect between the cryptos right now and the regular markets, and then there's a massive spike in gold and silver. We got gold up 63.50, 63.50, almost 4%. It's at 1722. That is a massive spike. You know why? Because they think the Republicans are going to take the House and the Senate, and that's going to then put gridlock into the cycle, so that Biden can't do anything, or actually it just basically stalemates both sides. McCarthy would be the Speaker of the House, and so Nancy would be ousted, and so a lot of changes would happen. How many seats are they going to win? Are the Republicans going to win in Congress, and are they going to win enough seats in the Senate to take control? And that would then put Joe Biden into a hole, because he wouldn't be able to pass his legislation coming forward. And so you can see silver's up $1.71, or almost 8.5 to almost 9% in one day. You know, that's a massive spike. And I've been talking about how gold and silver are being depressed in price because they're buying it up through the governments so that they can then back their digital currencies with gold as we move forward. So you're watching this massive it's a massive outflow on the COMEX and different things like that. That's silver and gold are being bought up in large quantities by governments because the price is so low. Even though when you go out and buy an ounce of silver bullion, and it's $21, as you can see here, it's $31 to $40 if you go out and try to buy it, because the premium is so high right now because there's a shortage of these metals and they're tight, and the delay on the shipping to you, if you're actually taking possession of the metals, is becoming a longer time, or they're having trouble finding certain things, certain different types of coins or things that they want to sell you, bullion, or stay away from the intrinsic value ones. Intrinsic value won't help you when gold is worth so much an ounce, or silver is so much an ounce. They'll try to sell you an intrinsic coin. Stay away from that. You do not want to get into that trap. Yes, they may go up, But if the world comes down, gold is going to be gold, and it's just the price of what the gold is. And so just buy your gold and silver. So what's going to happen in the next couple of years? A lot could be happening here as we get into this last line that crosses over my state. This is sort of a window between a 7-year gap here of time where things have really started to deteriorate in this country and across the world. But if something really bad happens by, say, April of 24, and I talked about this rising on the Antichrist at the end of 24 as we move into the regular election cycle of November, that we may not be in a position to even run elections. Are we in a position at that time that the civil unrest and things that are going on in the country have allowed us to actually even run an election? And the question I have is this for this election. So let's say we have a red wave. Let's say because the economy is so bad, inflation has destroyed people's incomes and disposable income, and they're basically broke. At least half the country is, and they're running into defaults, and their rent, they can't pay their rent. Businesses can't pay their rent. People are starting to run into problems. I just went out and bought a gallon of milk the other day. It was $5.96. Incredible. I'm in Illinois in a dairy area, and milk is $6 a gallon. Okay, fuel's moving up. Brent's up to almost $100. It's down a couple bucks today because China's shutting down again, and so they don't feel there's going to be a need for oil. But we also have reports that there's potentially on a hedge fund that we could see $300 a barrel oil. So I've talked about oil going to 120 to 150 soon, as we start to see oil tightening, and you have a couple of issues going on there. Biden's going to shut off the petroleum reserve, so that's 1 million barrels a day. They're going to put sanctions on Russia in December, which is going to eliminate 1 to 3 million barrels. And so we're going to see OPEC basically, do what they're going to do. They want oil up over $100. And if you have a massive slowdown, and you think that'd be a demand issue, but everything's tight, we're moving into fall, everything's produced off oil. Diesel is a problem right now, at least they say it is. We don't really know how long diesel's going to last. They've been talking 25 days for a while, but we are at the lowest level of diesel for a long time, and so we need to watch that problem as the Mississippi is drying up. They can't get the grain off the barges, and the train strike potentially could still happen November 19th, right after this election cycle. So that's something you need to be aware of, is that railroad strike that could affect the diesel people. And you're already having problems with the diesel guys. There's a lot of, we're short on truck drivers, and you have a barge issue on the whole Mississippi, basically. And, we have a low production of grain with fertilizer prices spiking and potentially going to triple, quadruple by next year. And so people are going to have to determine what type of plants and things they're going to plant next year and what chemicals they can get to be able to put those crops in. So what could happen on this election cycle? So there's a lot of tight races. And I'm not even going to give you a breakdown on how many seats and all that. That doesn't matter. I'm just going to look into the future and sort of get a feel for what I think is going to happen. And I don't want to get real political in this video because I'm trying to deal with biblical things, but I see things coming. And so, I'm a registered Republican. I'll be the first one to admit that. I've been Republican voter most of my life. I don't appreciate the Democrat agenda. I think it goes against God in a lot of ways. And I won't get into all those different topics because I don't want to set up a can of worms here. What I do want to say is this. when this woman comes out, and you all know who she is, she made an extremely important conversation the other day in her little talk show. She made a comment that she thought that if this went badly for the red wave and it didn't go our way on the Republican side, and I vote that way due to my moral and ethical values, and you can say whatever you want about that, that the Republicans would come out and riot and the streets would be filled and it would just get really ugly. I've learned one thing about the Democrats and Hillary. When Hillary comes out and talks, usually the opposite of exactly what she says is going to happen. So in this case, I could see where we have a red wave. We get to the end of the night. The election cycles start to come in. They stop the counting in a number of districts, states, and cities so that they can figure out why they're losing so badly, just as we did in 2020. We shut the election down. And then we muled in a ton of votes to get these election cycles to change between like midnight and 4 in the morning. And so when they brought the numbers back up, they were skewed all to the blue, and so we know something probably happened. Trump's been trying to break this down for a couple years, but of course the system's rigged against him, and so they have not allowed us that option. Now, something to think about, since the Democrats did hold power, the election cycles really haven't changed. Now, some of this may have changed in certain areas or districts because they're Republican groups, and I'm not saying they're rigging the elections. I'm just saying they're stopping the potential for infusion of bad ballots, mail-in ballots, muling, and other things, to where if they're so far behind, if we get to the point where the Democrats are so far behind in certain election cycles and the numbers are so far off, how are they going to justify doing the same practice in the 2022 midterm elections if they can't mule in millions of votes? Because at these election sites, the Republicans are all over this time. They're watching this stuff. They're not going to allow the Democrats to bully them around. They're not going to do this. They're going to document stuff. They're going to put it on the air. They're going to run videos about it. They're going to say, look, we're being abused. And they're not going to allow this to happen. You know, they've had 2 years to prepare for this. And so have the Democrats changed the system? No. You know, is Dominion and all these places still doing what they're doing? Probably. But if the wave is so heavy on the red side and they're millions of votes behind, or, you know, percentages that they can't overcome without placing in millions of votes, what would they do? Would Hillary and the Democrats stop the elections so that we'd have no outcomes in a lot of these places so that they could hold power? And this is all about holding power. That's what this is all about. There's nothing else to this but holding the power so that they stay in office and they can do more damage to this country, as they've done a lot of in the last couple of years, by infusing, you know, $5 trillion into the system and buying $9 billion in mortgage-backed loans and things that they've done to place all this on their balance sheet and tell us that somehow they don't understand how inflation occurred and that they've got a plan to fix this. Look, all I'm saying is that if this goes badly for the blue, how are they going to react? Would they send the Soros machine out? Would they pay their people to go out and riot on the street? Is that blood moon event over this country, that big A over our country by 24, a sign of what is to come in the next couple of years as this breaks down? Are they going to allow this loss of power and not do it in a fashion that is going to be disruptive, chaotic, and cause massive problems on the ground in this country as we're walking into potentially a terrible winter. People can't afford anything. We have high inflation that they're probably underreporting, and we're moving into a cycle of total devastation. Now, I talked about 2 dates that I recently come up with. One is January 24th of 2023. Now, this is Daniel 10, 3, and 14. I just did a video about this. I'm not going to go into this, but I believe that we are going to see a potential attack on Iran in January. That this, based on Daniel's prophecy, would last 22 days, and then on Valentine's Day of February 14th of 2023, because the original attack would happen on January 24th of 2023, we would see the nation of Iran fall, and then we would see potentially an attack on Israel by 10 full radical Muslim nations led by Turkey and Erdogan by 10/10 of 23, and that would last 15 days or about an hour. It gives them about an hour of power. That's 15 days of our time with God's time. And so on October 25th of next year, 23, we potentially would see a 6th seal event occur. Well, think about that, and then think about those blood moon events and those annual events over the country. So if we come back to this chart, like I said, we had that first crossing in 2017, which started to lead us into 2019. I talked about the first seal being unleashed. COVID started to come out. We hit 2020. At the very first day of 2020, we started to see COVID become a world pandemic. This one is coming up, and this 24th date, it's interesting. You know, you look at that date, I talked about October 10th through the 25th and that attack on Israel in 23, and we would see a decimation of a 6th seal, and that by 24, and if you go out to my paradigm, it says actually April 20th of 24, we would see potentially a signing of a treaty with the nations through Antichrist at this time on my paradigm. So if you go to the paradigm, you look at this, you realize in 19 we saw Erdogan start to attack down into Syria. That was when he first started his main phase, tried to start to build that 30-mile buffer zone. We are here now. Okay, October 10th of 23 would be here, and let me blow that up a little so you can see this a little better. I know it's a little light here. Let me bring it over a little. So we're here. Okay, we got an election cycle right here. Okay, I say we're going to see an attack on Iran here. That would end on the 14th of February. Erdogan would get his crown. We would start to see then Daniel 8 prophecy end. That would morph into Ezekiel 38 and 39. 10 Muslim nations would start to form. We would see locust, famine, and plagues start to hit Israel in the spring of 23. And then by October 10th of 23 to the 25th of 23, we would see an attack on Israel that would end up being a decimation of all these armies on the 6th seal. Okay? And if you go back to that, those paths, that these paths would fall around the times that I indicated. Now, you know, this is God working here, and I've shown you in the paradigm where I find all this stuff. It's all biblical scripture. Each of those steps in the timeline have scripture attached to them. I've done a 3-hour video about how that all was brought together so that I could show you. But this video is mainly, and I don't want to make it too long because we're getting into 25 minutes here, that I just don't know what's going to happen over this election cycle. Will the Democrats give up power? Will they allow Joe Biden to be stymied? Or will they stop this? Will they create that emergency? You know, Democrats always talk about creating an emergency, a catastrophe, so that they can get their agenda going on. And so, are they going to do that? Is that what's going to happen here? Are we in a cycle where between 17 and 24, right before Antichrist signs a treaty with the nations, that this country is going to break down in anarchy? Literal anarchy. That in 2 years, you won't recognize this country. You know, if you have a 6th seal break on the 25th of 23 in October, that is a global nightmare event. It changes the world. It rocks everything. The sun rolls, you know, a third of the sun is removed. A third of the moon is removed. Stars are falling on these nations that are attacking Israel. A third of the... You know, lots going on in the 6th seal. The scroll rolls back. You know, it's a global nightmare chain of fire event. You have earthquakes, volcanoes, all this stuff going off. Possibly wars happening at the same time. God is decimating 10 full nations on the ground during the 6th seal through the wrath of the Lamb on 6:16, which is not the same as wrath of God, which is in 15:1, Revelation. So what is going to happen in the next... You know, I just found the last date I needed that told me if we were going to have an attack on Iran on the 1st, or January 1st, or January 24th, if we were going to have an attack on January 24th of this next year, 23, that was what I needed for my confirmation so that I could understand when this attack on Iran was going to happen. And as we move into this blood moon cycle, this was the end of a tetrad, and this would then potentially create a real problem for us as we move forward. Keep an eye on this. You know, I'm concerned myself just due to this being over this area. You know, I don't know if these mean anything, but this large A in the middle of the country, I think, is telling us something fairly profound. That we're in for a long ride in the next 2 years. And I say the next 5 years, to the time our Lord comes back on the 7th trumpet during the Feast of Trumpets in 27 on October 2nd of 2027 on a sabbatical Saturday on the Feast of Trumpets, when the East Gate and the temple can be opened, because it can only be opened on 2 days, a sabbatical Saturday and a new moon. Now, one thing to look at is we have this blood moon, full moon event over this country tonight. Is that going to affect us greatly as we move forward? I say it is. I've been predicting this for a few years now. No one is listening. They're going to. He's going to wake you up soon. You're going to realize what's coming, but you won't have prepared fast enough, and food prices and things are going to be absorbent in the next year before the 6th seal event of potentially October 25th of 2023, and that attack on Israel with 10 nations, that you have less than a year to get ready before things really start to break. God bless everybody. I hope I'm wrong. You know, I'm just an analyst out here, just a speck of dust, a man. I'm just trying to figure this out like everybody else. I see these things, I'm going to point them out to you, and they may or may not come true. But if these specific dates start to happen, then I believe the paradigm is right that I found, and the next 5 years is going to be extremely trying. And you will be refined through fire. There is no free ticket here. You are not going to be whisked away until the last trumpet, which is on, I say, the Feast of Trumpets of 2027. So God bless everybody. Find the open door. Find Jesus. Get prepping. If you're not prepping, if you're not doing something every day, you're wasting time. You're wasting energy. You should be putting calories in your house getting ready for a nightmare to come. If you aren't, don't complain later when you haven't done it and you said, you know what, I should have done this stuff, and now look at us. It's going to be impossible after the sixth seal breaks. The world will change. Nothing you see out here will be the same. God bless everybody. Be safe. Time is short. Put oil in your lamps. Work on prepping every day. It's going to catch you like a storm. This is the perfect storm waiting to happen. So you better be prepared for it. God bless everybody.